What does Japan, a trip to Europe, and pretty much the greatest unfinished love story in my life have to do with me becoming a pilot? Let's find out. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Late Departure. I'm Adam, and as most of you know who are following this, I have a dream to become a commercial pilot, and this is my story of how I got to this point. And as I continue on, I hope you will all keep following me along and joining me for this journey to find out, is it possible to become a commercial pilot at the late age of 36 years old? And how is this all going to happen? Well, we'll see. But today, I thought it would be a good idea, instead of, the usual videos I do where I'm just trying to learn more about aviation and a pilot career and how to get there and how I could possibly help all of you just with the stuff that I've learned. I thought it'd be kind of cool if you at least knew a little bit about me, and hopefully knowing a little bit about my background and my origin story will kind of help you understand why I do the stuff that I do and how I came to do the things that I'm doing now. So my wife absolutely loves this story. She says it's one of the greatest unfinished love stories of all time, and she desperately wants to make it into a movie. I'm not sure if that is really going to happen, but I do love the story. I think it's very pure and very lovely because, it's love that never really happened, but it sort of happened sort of thing. And it really was the start of a lot of stuff that happened in my life, and it's what led me to pursue graduate degrees in language learning, and it's something that made me really love Asian culture, especially like Japanese culture and all kinds of things like that. So when I was 17, my father said that I really needed to get out and see the world, because I hadn't really traveled that much outside of Canada except for to Ontario, where most of my family is from. So he arranged for me to go on sort of a group backpacking tour thing. And on this tour, I had this plan basically to go all over Europe with a small group of people. And none of these people are people I'd ever met before. They're just people that kind of came together through this program. And it was really exciting, but also a little scary to go out into this world that, I hadn't really heard that much about. And so I arrived in England, and this is, again, back when I was 17, just turning 18 there. And I met with this group of people, and there were a whole bunch of Australians. There were some people from Canada, some people from the States, and there were 3 Japanese people and 2 Japanese girls there. And up until that point, I had spent a lot of time of my youth talking with people from other countries and cultures. I used to volunteer in my high school and elementary school to help teach English to foreign students visiting Canada. And I always loved learning about their stories and learning about where they came from, what they did, what they ate, how they spoke. And it was so fascinating to me. One of the most fascinating things was the fact that after I started learning languages, so when I was young, I learned Mandarin Chinese, I learned Korean, of course learned French because I was in Canada. And the more languages I learned, the more I realized that, you can only really understand a person if you speak in their language. And so that meant learning, if I wanted to really understand what someone from Taiwan thought, well, I spent a lot of my youth with my best friends who were Taiwanese, learning how to speak in Mandarin. I went to Chinese school. I was the only Caucasian Canadian student amongst all these Taiwanese children practicing Chinese characters and stuff like that. But I always loved learning languages. So when I was in Europe, I started in England, and I started traveling around through France, through Spain, back up through France, through the French Riviera, down through Italy, up through Germany, Austria. So I was basically traveling on a bus with all of these people. At some point, I ended up sitting next to this one Japanese girl. Her name was Yukiko. I think her full name was Yukiko Takeuchi or Yukiko Takeguchi or something like that. And we just got to talking. She spoke very little English. So we started off, I was writing in a little diary every day, which I found the other day. It was very cute. I was only 17 and I'm writing like, "Dear diary, today I met someone and did this." And I never write a diary, so it was just very quaint and very funny to see what I did back then. But in any case, so we started off just by exchanging little things like she asked me, when I first sat next to her, like she was super, super shy, extremely shy, but she asked me if I wanted to learn some Japanese. So little by little, first she taught me hiragana and katakana, the two writing systems, the pseudo-alphabetical writing systems in Japanese. And she taught me some Chinese characters, the kanji. And day by day, I just learned little by little. And every single day, we would talk more, and she would teach me more, and I'd learn these things. And she'd brought some chocolates and candies and stuff from Japan that she'd share with me. So the first thing that I learned how to write in Japanese and katakana was Aporo. And Aporo is this chocolate that has like strawberry chocolate on the top and milk chocolate on the bottom. It's really delicious. I love these things. And she shared those with me, and those are her favorite candies, her favorite chocolate. And I just ended up spending so much time with her. Like, so throughout the trip, we just ended up hanging out quite a lot. And she'd always be behind me, kind of like a ghost or something. I'd be walking along, and I'd turn my shoulder, like, oh my God, she's standing there. And she'd kind of follow along after me. And it was very cute, but I had never had a girlfriend before. I'd never kissed a girl or anything like that before. So I was super innocent. And any of my close friends who know me now can definitely say that that's not me these days. I'm totally different now. But I was very innocent. I had no idea about love. I had no idea about like girls. I was really shy and really immature as well. So I didn't have the guts to talk to a girl or ask a girl out or anything like that. So in any case, at one point when we were traveling down through Italy, we stopped at this campsite, and all of us were in these little mini cabins. And, like every single place we went to, of course, because it was sort of like a group travel thing, a few guys would be in each cabin and the girls would be in a few in each cabin. And we'd stay regularly sort of campsites and stuff like that to keep the costs low. And one day I went out to the public shower, went to take my shower, came back with my towel around my waist, and went into my cabin, looked at my suitcase, which was open. All my clothes were gone. None of my clothes were there. And I freaked out. I was thinking, oh my God, what happened to my clothes? Someone stole all of my clothes. This is terrible. And I went outside, like holding my towel there, running around to all the cabins saying, oh my God, someone stole my clothes. Help me, someone stole my clothes. And so a whole group of us got together and we're all searching all over the place for my clothes. And so you could just picture me running around this dirty campsite in the hot sun in the afternoon, looking for my clothes desperately. Funnily enough, all my valuables were still, my camera, everything like that was still in my bag, but all my clothes were gone. So finally, after searching for an hour or something like that, we gave up. I went back to my cabin there, and I was gonna see if maybe the Australian guy I was sharing a room with could spare me a t-shirt or something like that. I knew definitely I didn't want to use his underwear or anything. He was really interesting. I learned a lot from that Australian guy, but he did something called the Australian shower, where instead of washing his clothes conventionally, he would lay them out on the bed and just spray them with Axe body spray. And he called that the Australian shower. I don't know if that's really an Australian thing or not. Out of consideration and respect for all Australians, I'm just going to assume that's not a real thing, but maybe someone can correct me on that. In any case, I get back to my cabin, and who should be standing outside of my cabin holding my clothes all washed and cleaned and folded and everything like that? It's Yukiko. And I just let her have it. What are you doing? Why did you take my clothes? How could you do that? And she's holding my clothes. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And she like just quickly gives me my clothes, and then it's just like, I don't know what you call it, kind of like a very shy little run. She runs off quietly there, and I'm just like fuming, right? Well, all the while, in retrospect, I probably should have been thinking, well, thank you very much for washing my clothes. But of course, I had no idea what this meant. I didn't know why this girl was washing my clothes or trying to take care of me. She was actually, I think, a year or two older than I was. But she steadily just started taking more and more care of me as we had been traveling throughout Europe. Well, in any case, I forgave her later on. Forgave her. Again, I should have been thanking her, but I forgave her later on, and we were still good friends. We still hung out, and we still took a bunch of pictures together and traveled around together. And on the last day, she came up to me and she said in Japanese that she was really happy to have met me. And it was really, I don't know. I didn't understand really what it all meant when she came up to me and she was like, "Adamu-san ni deatte hontou ni tanashikatta, hontou ni ureshikatta." She said that, and I was just like, "Oh yeah, I had fun too. Yeah, we had a good trip." And then she gave me this present, a package with a letter on it. And she said, "I really hope to see you again in Canada. I really want to come visit you," or something like that. And you can come visit me in Japan. And of course, me being the ignorant, totally clueless guy, I took the present from her and I was like, "Oh yeah, totally, sure, yeah. Okay, well, see you later. Have a good trip." And I just walked off, leaving her there, standing in the middle of the street in London. And, after that, I didn't see her again. And then I just made my way back and tossed the present in my bag and the letter in my bag, and then got my stuff, closed the bag, went off to Heathrow Airport, and made my way back to Canada. So I was so clueless at this time. I really hadn't thought very much of what she did or what she said or really anything about what happened during that entire time. As soon as I got back home, I tossed the letter under my messy bed in my messy room, and I ripped open the package, which had a whole bunch of chocolates and really heartfelt gifts, some really beautiful stuff, some really nice gifts from Japan. She bought some things from England. She also threw in a bunch of things from our travels around Europe, just kind of as a memory of all the times that we'd spent together and all of that stuff. It was a really touching gift, but I basically just took the chocolates and ate them and took the rest of the stuff and, just threw it under my bed. And, I was so clueless. It was looking back on it now, it's just really funny. In any case, so quite a while went by, maybe 3-4 months went by. And something I didn't really realize, but over the course of 3 or 4 months, I had been sleeping horribly. I couldn't eat like I normally ate. I was always distracted. I wasn't really thinking about stuff properly. And at one point, I went for about 4 days without being able to sleep, just lying in bed, eyes wide open, no idea why. And all of a sudden, at the 4th day straight of not being able to sleep, and again, this is 3 months after I'd come back from Europe, I realized, oh my God, I'm in love with her. I am so in love with her. And I realized that I didn't notice, but I hadn't been able to stop thinking about her. And I had just been somewhat kind of obsessed with her, but I didn't really realize why. But then I realized, wow, this is love. And I know it sounds super corny, but that's exactly what it was. So middle of the night, I thought, I gotta find that letter. I gotta find it. I have to find out what happened to her. And I dug through the mess in my room underneath my bed, and after hours of searching, I pulled out the letter. I opened it up, and it was this beautifully written letter in Japanese. And she had written in the letter in Japanese, "Dear Adam, I just want you to know that you're the funniest and happiest person that I've ever met, and I wish I could spend so much time with you. I didn't realize it at the moment, but before I knew it, I came to like you so much, and I really just want to see you again. I really want to go to Canada. I'd love to be with you and be near you." And it was at that moment I'd realized what I'd done, and I was so sad and disappointed that I didn't realize it before. And I ended up taking that letter and just clenching it tight and thinking, how am I gonna find her? And I looked on it. So she'd left her cell phone number, her home address, her dormitory address, her email address. And so the first thing I thought was, well, maybe I can reach her by phone. So I made a really expensive long distance call to Japan, much to my parents' anger. And I tried calling, but it turned out that that number was no longer in service. So she must have either lost her phone or had to switch her phone or something like that. And I was so sad to see that. So I tried the email, which was actually her university email. And for those of you who know or don't know, well, probably for any of you who have attended a university, you would know that a lot of university emails expire after you graduate. So apparently the trip to Europe was her graduation trip, and she'd graduated. So at that point, 3 months later, her email address no longer went, but I still had the dormitory address and her home address, which were both in a place called Kichijoji, Tokyo. In any case, so I emailed her, couldn't get through. I emailed her friend, who was also on the trip, but her friend didn't have, well, the friend on the trip was someone she actually met on the trip, and they didn't have each other's contact information. So her friend was saying, I'm so sorry, I don't have her contact. I guess you'll have to go there and find her yourself. So I went and got a bunch of part-time jobs because I was so young, no one would hire me full-time, saved up my money, and within a few months, I'd bought tickets to Japan. So I was on the soonest flight I could get out there. I basically went straight to Japan and just beelined it straight to Kichijoji, where the addresses were for her dormitory and home address, which was somewhere near Tokyo. So right from the airport, I told the people I'm looking for this address. They sent me on these trains. I went through a bunch of trains, got off there, went straight to the dormitory. Unfortunately, of course, since she already graduated, she wasn't there anymore. The old lady who worked there said, oh yeah, I totally knew her, but she didn't leave any forwarding address or anything like that. But unfortunately, she's gone now. And so I then went to her home address, and her family had moved already. And they said, oh yeah, that family was here until like 3 weeks ago. They moved 3 weeks ago to somewhere else. And I was just so heartbroken. I walked into this little garage in Kichijoji, which had this old surfer car mechanic who had surfboards all over his wall, just up and down his walls. And I told him in like as much sort of like broken Japanese as I could. And during the time that I was working those part-time jobs, I was also studying Japanese every single day as much as I could. But I told this guy in my broken Japanese what happened. And he was so moved by my story that he like grabbed me by the shoulder and he took me around like the entire prefecture of like Kichijoji and like that entire area, knocking on people's doors, going to various places, asking about this girl to see if anyone had seen her or knew about her. And we couldn't find anyone. We went to the university that she went to there. And of course they couldn't give any information. They weren't swayed by my pathetic love story, but they couldn't give us like any other contact info or anything like that. So ultimately I couldn't find her. And after days of searching, just nonstop in Japan, in Kichijoji for this girl, I couldn't find her. So I found myself in Ueno Park in Tokyo, and I was just crying my eyes out and thinking, oh, this is so sad. I came all this way to find this girl who taught me all this amazing stuff about Japan and Japanese and the culture and the food and everything like that. And I was just sitting by myself at this park bench, looking down, feeling sorry for myself. And I then picked up my head and I looked around, and it just so happened that, it's just a beautiful time of year. I was in this park that, just had these food vendors selling like takoyaki and stuff like that. There was just all this beauty from this park bench that I sat at. It was at that moment that I fell in love with Japan. And even though I never found her, and the love that happened or that could have happened will never ever actually happen, that love just really implanted the love of Japan in me, and everything about it, the people, the culture, the food. And I went around Japan, and I literally at that point, I got a JR rail pass so I could kind of travel around, and I just went around meeting people, talking with people, learning about all of these different things. And everyone is so nice to me. I met people who are friends of mine up until this day. I met one of my closest friends, Akane, out in Japan at that time. And I met all these friends who were just so amazing, took me around, showed me everything, introduced me to all these foods and things like that. And it was the most amazing experience in my entire life. Now, one thing about Yukiko is one of her favorite stars at the time was someone named Kumuro Takuya. And when we talked, one of the things that came up was she asked me what I really wanted to do. And I told her it was my dream to become a pilot. And she told me about a really cool Japanese drama called Good Luck. Oh, mandatory plane break. Good Luck is a Japanese drama about a pilot starring Kimura Takuya who just goes through all these things. And the thing I loved about that drama is it really showed sort of the joy and the passion for being a pilot and really what it's all about. And it's all about, you know, the love of the sky, the love of flying, the freedom and all those kinds of things. And that really helped stoke my desire to become a pilot. And it was after that that I really truly pursued the career in aviation and tried my best to do that. And we'll talk about in another origin story video about what happened and sort of how that sort of panned out. So ultimately, in the end, this whole thing with Yukiko and, you know, her introducing me to the Good Luck Japanese drama and also to the joys of traveling and the freedom of flying around the world and meeting people and learning new cultures and languages and eating different foods. It was just something that made me really, really passionate about flying. And so that's how I got to the point, even to the point where I'm at today, where I really want to pursue this career in aviation. It's something that I've wanted to do for the past 30 some odd years of my life. So I know that was a long story, but I hope this kind of gives you an idea of, you know, why I'm doing what I'm doing and how I got to be where I am now and why I do these things like speak Japanese and Korean and Chinese and all that kind of stuff. As always, thank you so much for joining me on my late departure and listening to my lengthy origin story here. I hope you all have a wonderful day and that you're safe and healthy and happy. If you're doing your flight training, I hope you do your best and have fun. And remember, it's never too late. See you next time.